this. Just wanted to recap Thursday night Giants and Washington, which was a really, really good game. As far as just entertainment goes, it was a really solid game. 1-point game, so I mean, it had to be pretty good, right? Got to 60 points with those two teams. Holy smokes! So maybe a little off on the handicap there, I would say, for Mr. Jacob from Wager Me This. Washington did pull out the win. I don't think they played the best. I think the Giants actually have played them in the game, outside of Taylor Heineke just being awesome on everything but one single play where a route got jumped on him. So, I mean, Taylor Heineke showed up. So I had that handicap right on him. He came to play. He gave it everything, and he came out with the W, so well deserved. Obviously, I had the Daniel Jones rushing prop. I had that one dead on. It was way too low. It got there in the first quarter, basically. He had like 70 yards in the first half, right? 70 yards rushing in the first half. And it was only 22 to start, and dropped down to 20, went back up to 22. I mean, that was too easy. And I know that sounds crazy, right? But sometimes on the props, you can find spots where it's just not handicapped well in Vegas or whoever's making the line. Because if you make a prop for every quarterback, for every running back, for every receiver, by the time you get down to Daniel Jones's rushing yards, some kid in the basement just throws together some averages and goes, okay, Washington has a good defense, we're going to drop it by 3 yards. And I mean, it's not, it's not like the games where the games themselves are dissected and those lines are usually really good, or the over and unders for that matter. The props you can find holes in them for sure, and this was a hole. There's some more I'll show you guys along the way, that players that usually get undervalued or way overvalued, and I'll show a few more along the way. But Daniel Jones is usually a good one. For whatever reason, his rushing props will be low, and he's essentially a dual threat quarterback, or at least considered a dual threat quarterback for the most part. I mean, I would say that most analysts say he's a runner and a passer, not just a passer, right? And so any of those 20 yardage rushing props, you got to be on them. I mean, there's a few, you might lose a few here and there, but the overall, you're going to win well over 80% of rushing props for guys like that. All right. Mahomes is another one. See, a lot of times Mahomes will have like 17-yard rushing props or 16-yard rushing props. Well, that's only one scramble, guys. That's one scramble out the backside. He runs for 17 yards, gets a first down. It's a nondescript play in the game, and that's why a lot of people don't pay attention to him. Because outside of Daniel Jones's huge run, right, last night, even though he still would have covered without that big run, do you remember any of the other runs? No, not really, right? They weren't amazing runs. He had a few called runs that he got to his yardage prop on, and then a few first down, little scrambles up the middle for 3 and 5, and guys, that's how that goes. So those kind of props are actually pretty easy. Hey ATS, how are you, buddy? So on those things, and that's why I harped on that so many times. I harped on it in the Thursday night primetime show. I harped on it yesterday morning about getting on that prop, because it was a freebie. It was them giving out a bad handicap, a bad line, and it was easy to take advantage of. Right? So I also said that on the Thursday night show, I said I thought Washington would cover 3. They did not. I actually think that's a bad handicap after the game here. I don't think that I just got like unlucky and didn't cover 3 or something. I think Washington had to do everything they can to get a 1-point win. In fact, they took a penalty at the end, so to solidify it, right, to even give them a second chance at that field goal. Now, you could say that the Giants making that great defensive play when they were down, and the game, all Heineke had to do was run the clock out. But the Giants made that play. So, in fact, the Giants kind of screwed themselves by making that play. if they would have made that play at the 50-yard line and had to go some yards, the game would have been over, right? So they would have kicked field goal and won. But they just had too much time to go from the 20. So the Giants kind of got unlucky there. Now, I know people are going to talk about the penalties, but the penalties were equal, all right? They were called bad on both sides. This was a very bad called game, all right? There was bad calls and then bad missed calls in this game on both sides. It was a very, very bad called football game. So, I actually, D Wade, I just sent out for everybody that's part of the picks on YouTube or for either one. I actually just sent your guys' workups out this morning. So I actually just put the emails together, and you guys should have received them by now. If you did not receive them, let me know. But as far as I can tell, my computer said it all got sent. Yeah, I know. I absolutely know, D-Way. But yeah, you should have got the email today already. It should already be there. So with both my plays, my favorite plays, and then the breakdowns. Guys, remember, it is week 2. Week 2 is the hardest week traditionally in the NFL. Reason is overreaction from Vegas, overreaction from the public, overreaction from sharp bettors. Spreads get goofy. So what I always do on week 2 is I go back to week 1 and I say, okay, if these guys were playing these guys in week 1, what would I have thought? And that's how I temper myself from being tricked, right? Awesome, man, awesome. So, guys, I definitely like week 2's games, but I mean, some of them are overreactionary, right? And so let's just talk about a few. Like, I'll talk about the biggest overreaction game. I'm not going to give my pick out, but it'll probably be easy to figure out who I'm on. All right? But it's Buffalo-Miami, right? It has to be Buffalo-Miami because Buffalo got dominated by the Steelers' defense. Kind of, right? Josh Allen missed on 2 dead nuts deep ball touchdowns, right? He missed week 1 playing the Steelers. They're hard to play against, right, on defense. So, yeah, he overthrew 2 guys that were, walk-in touchdowns. If he connects there, that's a different football game, all right? And then Miami gets a gift win against New England, right? New England, if you look at the stats for that game on Miami-New England, New England dominated that football game, all right? Mac Jones, much better stats than Tua, all right? But they fumbled on the 30, go driving to win, kick a field goal or touchdown to win the game. They fumbled on the 30, all right? Then Miami gets the ball, runs the clock out, the game's over, all right? That game was kind of like last night, right? The Giants outplayed Washington last night, but Heineke had enough in him to get that done. With a little luck from some penalties, but he had enough to get it done. But the Giants outplayed Washington last night. So, sometimes the team that wins on the field does not win on the scoreboard. This happens, right? This happens every week, actually. And it's weird little things like that. You know, one fumble here, one penalty here, and, you know, changes complexions of the game. But, so this is the overreaction, right? Buffalo, people are going to be like, oh, Miami, look, they're solid. They're a good defensive team. No, they're not. They're not. Mac Jones threw for like 250 on them, all right? What do you think Josh Allen is going to do to these guys, all right? The last time they met, Josh Allen hung 56 on them. It's the same team, all right? He hung 56 on them, all right? Now, that was when they were hot and they were blowing up the world. So maybe they're not there right now, but they're going to get to 30, right? So do you think Miami's going to get to 27? I doubt it. You know, and that's where I'm. So on overreaction game, so Vegas has overreacted on the spread. This spread should be 6.5, and it's 3. All right, there is no way you can put these two teams up against each other and say they are a 3-point spread. You can't make me believe that against Buffalo and Miami. Look, I don't read anything into Pittsburgh beating Buffalo. Pittsburgh is supposed to beat Buffalo. All right, Pittsburgh's defense is top 1 or 2 in the NFL. You have a Hall of Fame quarterback and good skill position players. Right? You are supposed to beat Buffalo sometimes. In Buffalo, that's what happens when you're a good defense. When you have a good quarterback, you can go to places where there's good teams and beat them. All right? That's I don't read nothing into it. I don't think Buffalo was overly bad in the game. I think Josh Allen missed on 2 for sure scores. That's what happened. All right? You left the door open for Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh kicked it in, and that's what they do. You can't leave the door open for Pittsburgh. They will stomp on you. And so Josh Allen will learn that. Josh Allen will learn he has to hit those balls, He'll get there. But I'm not going to read into that I think Miami's all of a sudden a good football team when I didn't think they were a good football team week 1. And they weren't. They weren't a good football team on Sunday. Tua looked like crap because I don't think Tua's a good quarterback. He threw in bad interceptions. I mean, it's just an overreaction game. All right, so let's go to the second overreaction game, okay? And this is kind of like my second pick on the overreaction game. And it's the Dallas Cowboys and the Chargers, right? So the Dallas Cowboys are plus 3.5 going to the Chargers, right? This is such a weird one because I think that Vegas has it handicapped right, but the rhetoric, right? The rhetoric around the game is, look, Dallas took, the Super Bowl champs to the title game, right? They took them to, just on Thursday night, took them to the max, all right? And the Chargers struggled with Washington. Herbert had a pretty good game, though. I think in that game there was a point where he was like 16 for 16 or something, right? He had a pretty good football game, Herbert. He should, though. He's a pretty good quarterback, right? But they only ended up winning by 4 or something like that. But so this is the other side of the coin, right? The overreaction to Dallas is not an overreaction. Guys, last year when Dallas and Dak were healthy, they were scoring in the 40s, right? There's the high 30s, 50 one time, I think, 51 or something against Atlanta, wasn't it? So it's not unusual to see them play well on offense when he's healthy. Now Gallup's out, and their best defensive end is out. So does that matter? Yeah, that matters. I mean, Gallup is a big part of their offense, and that's their best defensive player. Do I think it'll matter all that much? No, I think that's going to be negated by Dallas having some extra time, right? They have some extra time to prepare. They played on Thursday. So I think they're going to have that situation handled. Would it matter as much anyway? I don't think so. This is going to be a shootout. I think this is going to be 2 good young quarterbacks playing against each other with good young teams. And, yeah, I think it's just going to be a shootout. But do I think the hype for Dallas is overreaction? I don't. Because they took the Bucs to the limit, and they did it without flukiness, right? I mean, it wasn't a fluky. They played them. They played them straight up, and just left too much time for the GOAT, right? Left too much time for Tom Brady to go down and get it done. And that's what happens if you leave too much time for those guys. They get it done. So, so on one side, I think the overreaction where Buffalo's only a 3-point spread, I think that's an overreaction. The overreaction where Dallas on the road, yeah, I heard him. And I believe that. Guys, believe it or not, the NFC East from last year to this year, just with Dak Prescott being healthy, is a lot different, right? We'll see on the Eagles. We'll see on the Eagles. I know they beat Atlanta, but guys, everyone beats Atlanta. So, but they held Atlanta down, which is unusual, right? A lot of teams aren't able to hold Atlanta down. Atlanta usually scores. So that was pretty good. I was impressed. So I was impressed by the Eagles. So I actually think the NFC East is better. Okay, we'll jump over to jump over to those games. Okay, so Cleveland and Houston. Okay, so this is a great one because this is an overreaction too. Crazy overreaction here. All right. Now the spread matches, right? The spread is right. 12 or whatever it is, it's right. Houston's not a good football team. All right. But Houston isn't going to score in this game. They play Jaguars. The Jaguars they're just like Clemson with Jaguars uniforms. I mean, so they're not an NFL team yet. So what I think in this one, I think that the Cleveland Browns went toe-to-toe with the best team in the AFC last week, and for 3 quarters they beat them. Well, you've got to cut the head off the snake when it's Mahomes or Brady or those guys. They didn't cut the head off the snake, so that snake bit them. That Mahomes snake bit them. So if you don't cut that head off, those teams come back and beat you. And so I think the Browns just have to learn that. But the Houston Texans are not the Kansas City Chiefs. The Houston Texans are going to get blasted. All right? When I handicapped this at least 17 points, right? Everything I had said this was at least a 17-point game. So, this is the only big part of what I'm going to give out. I think that the Browns will get close to 50 points in this game. I think they will bump 50 points. They might not get all the way there, but they're going to have a shot at it. All right? That's a lot in the NFL. And why? Because Houston won't be able to stop them. All right, and Tampa Bay and Atlanta. Okay, this one's tricky, right? This one's a little trickier. This one is, Tampa Bay and Atlanta, because normally Atlanta puts up 24 points, right? It's pretty consistent for them to get to the 20s, but they didn't. And they didn't against an Eagles team that, the Eagles were so injured last year that it's just hard to know after week 1. It's hard to have any idea after week 1, like really where they're at, right? Jalen Hurts was a pleasant surprise week 1. He looked efficient. He looked effective. So, but really, is that defense that good? I don't know. They weren't, even when they were healthy, they weren't that good last year. So Atlanta played those guys, right? Atlanta wasn't able to do anything against them. And by not doing anything, I mean they weren't able to do nothing. And so, do I think that carries over into this game? Yeah, I don't. How much are they going to be able to do against the Bucs? It doesn't seem like a lot, but I just don't think their output of scoring will be held that low. That spread's high, guys. That spread's high. I don't know. I don't have much. I don't have much information just really on the game. That game's one of the tougher ones for me, right? It's because is Tampa Bay coming off of that big letdown after that big win? They do have extra time. There's a lot involved in this one. This is why week 2 is so hard, right? It's the big overreaction, right? Is Atlanta really that bad? Well, probably not. They have a young rookie stud tight end, and he didn't play great. So I mean, I just think that I think the Bucs will win the game. That's what I'll say. If you want to drop that $800 money line, I think the Bucs will win. So there you go. I mean, if I'm going to play this game, right? So if I'm going to play this game, I'm not going to look to fighting them 12-point spreads and all that kind of stuff with the Bucs. You just can't. I don't feel like you can play Atlanta, right? So that's the thing I don't think there's a case to play Atlanta. But the Bucs are handicapped right, so you can't really play the Bucs either at -800 or -12.5 because that's a huge backdoor. So, the Bucs could be dominating by 21 points, and in the fourth quarter they could let Atlanta score 10 points, and the game never really changes complexion, but the spread does. And so that's what a backdoor is. And I just, I'm not thrilled about that one for sure. And they put that money line so high, so because they knew people. If they put that money line at 400, there's people with big money that are going to hammer that because that's a win, right? It's a win. So that's one of those deals where it's kind of like, it's one of those ones where you just leave it alone. That's kind of my opinion on the Bucks game. I'm not really big on that. Green Bay Lions, who knows? I mean, I handicapping that game, right? Another huge, ridiculous big spread. Do I think Green Bay is 10 points better than the Lions? I do. Do I think they'll show it on the field? I do. Am I going to bet it? Hell no. So, hey, Ansela. But, Green Bay's one of those ones where you throw them in 10-point teasers, right? Because you get them from 11 down to just win. I don't think he wants to be in Green Bay, and I think that's what we saw week 1. I think when the Saints came out to play, I think he was like, no, I ain't playing against these guys. They're out here really playing hard. Just pack this one in. They'll put me on the bench in the second half. So the thing is he does have an ego. And so all he's heard all week long now was how terrible he played and how he got dominated. And I think, he's that guy. He's that guy that'll be like, okay, I'm going to show you guys who I am for this 1 week here. Yeah, and that's kind of... But yeah, I mean, guys, I don't know. It's one... This is a very unique situation in sports where you have this kind of player, right? This kind of player just being so disgruntled with the situation that did he throw that game against New Orleans? I don't know. It didn't look like he was trying hard. Go Sports. What's up, Zach? How are you, buddy? So it didn't necessarily look like he was trying all that hard. I don't know. It's one of those ones I'm probably going to leave alone. I'll be all over the props in that game. But as far as just picking a side there, I don't think you can take Detroit in that. I don't think you can take Green Bay. Just ETS. Now Green Bay on a 10-point teaser, taking them down to win. I like that play. I feel like that's a pretty good EV play because I don't think Green Bay loses 2 in a row. And this one's at home. And I do think Aaron Rodgers is going to come out with his ego and throw a few touchdowns with his ego. So, but the Saints are better than people wanted them to be, I think. The Saints are better people expected them to be, I think, except for Jacob. I actually thought, if you guys remember our first video, I actually thought the Saints are a Super Bowl sleeper. I've thought that from the beginning of the year before a single snap was played. And I actually think this is Jameis Winston's coming out year. Them 5 touchdowns, I think we can throw them out the window. They were all basically set up by the defense. I think he had 2 drives where he directed it. The rest of those were basically defense. So that's why he didn't have any yards but 5 touchdowns, right? But I think Sean Payton, Drew Brees being there last year, I think they've reeled Jameis in, and I think we're going to see a really good football player from here on out. And I think the Saints got their guy. So, and the Saints defense is good. Okay, so this is the way I always look at that, Enslow. It's a probability versus possibility, okay? So the possibilities are the Lions could play a close game and doesn't matter what you do, right? Green Bay could win, Lions play a close game, doesn't matter what you do. All right, which way you tease it. Or the other possibility is the Lions play a bad game, Green Bay dominates them and blows them out. And there's kind of a third possibility there, because I don't think the Lions have a chance to win. So I'm taking their chance to win out. Or you have a back door, right? So from that standpoint, I'll get you in that in just a second, Wade. I have some good answers for that. So from that standpoint, the idea that you would tease to 21 and a half, because it's a 10-point teaser, I think it's 11 and a half. 21 and a half makes a ton of sense, right? 3 full touchdowns, right? All right, three full touchdowns where you could lose by 21 and still win that bet. That makes sense. But getting to 20 or 20 and a half or 19, I don't think it makes, because I do think the Packers can win by that. So it's probability. What's the most probable outcome, right? Most probable outcome is the Packers win the game, right? So if you get it down to 1.5 points, it's the most probable outcome, right? What are the possible outcomes? The possible outcomes are the Packers blow them out, the Packers get backdoored, or the Packers play a close game and win. That's what I think the 3 probable outcomes are versus the 3 possible outcomes versus the most probable outcome. And the most probable outcome is Green Bay wins the football game. And so when I'm making teasers, that's what I look at. If they're not a Wong teaser, if they're not just getting me through the numbers and it's all about a numbers game, then I look at probability versus possibility, and I handicap it that way, okay? What are my 3 possibilities, 4 possibilities in this game? If both teams can win, I like that. I like the idea that both teams can win, because then the answer is just take the points and tease them up, right? So if both teams have a legitimate shot at winning a game, guys, tease the points. I mean, it's as good of a handicap as anything. If both teams have a legitimate shot at winning, not a fluky shot, right? So last week, the Lions never had a chance to beat the 49ers, right? It was never realistic. The Bears never had a realistic chance to beat the Rams, right? The Cowboys, on the other hand, had a realistic, before the game, they had a realistic chance that they would beat the Buccaneers. And so that's the way I look at teasers, right? So when I'm looking at them, that's what I'm looking at. All right, so to the Saints question. Jameis Winston. Okay, so there's a lot of history of this in the league, right? Not exactly the same, but when quarterbacks that were high draft picks, let's say, sit behind good quarterbacks, veteran quarterbacks, Hall of Fame quarterbacks, they tend to do well when they get put in the game that next year. So here's a good example. Patrick Mahomes, right? Pretty high draft pick, first rounder, sits behind Alex Smith when Alex Smith is doing his best. Alex Smith got fired after 13 and 3 years, so put it that way. All right. Mahomes comes in, he's polished. After sitting on the bench for a year, he's polished. He looks good. He goes to the AFC Championship. Next year he's an MVP, wins Super Bowl, all those things, right? So there's another example. Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers sits a couple years behind Brett Favre. All right. He comes into the game, he's polished, he looks good. All right. There's another example, okay? And now I know this wasn't a full season, but Tom Brady sat behind Drew Bledsoe. And Tom Brady got to learn from Drew Bledsoe, all right? So there is, in all these cases, guys, the coaching was pretty good, right? And so what do we have here? We have a Hall of Fame quarterback that taught a guy that was a high first rounder how to play in the NFL, and they have good coaching, right? So there is a history that this works, right? Now, when it's a lower pick, right? Well, Brady was not a high pick, but I guess we need to eliminate that one. But there's more examples than this as well. So what ends up happening is those players come in to usually good situations, right? Well, he's in a really good situation. The Saints have a good defense. Sean Payton really good coach. They got good offensive weapons. They got one of the best running backs in the league. They got one of the best offensive lines in the league. And he had a year to learn from Drew Brees. So now, and I think that's why he didn't get put in as the starter last year, and Taysom Hill did. I think that's exactly why. I don't think he was ready. And then they had the whole season, and now I think you're seeing, I think what we're going to see is a very, very reeled in Jameis Winston that is a very consistent, solid, effective football player, right? I think you saw it in the Packers game. When he was throwing the ball in the middle of the field, those balls were on target. They had zip. They weren't into coverage. Even the one that got called back that ended up an interception, that ball hit his receiver in the hands. That should have been a touchdown. And so, again, that's where I'm getting this from, right? So there's a history behind this situation where a high draft pick gets behind a Hall of Famer and a good coach in a good situation, and that is a recipe for success. And so if you think about other situations, right, where that didn't happen, okay? You think about your Peyton Mannings, right? Peyton Manning had a terrible first year. Second year was better. It took him a while to really get the NFL game down, right? There was no doubt in anyone's mind that Peyton Manning was a great quarterback when he came out of college, right? But it still was hard on him. But he didn't have anyone to come in, sit behind, and learn from. He didn't get that, right? He didn't come in and sit behind John Elway or even a Kurt Warner. You know, he didn't even get none of that. He just had to come in and be the guy. Well, that's what happened to Jameis when he first got to Tampa Bay. He had to just come in and be the guy. Well, it just wasn't going to work, right? So now he's had that opportunity to come in, sit behind the Hall of Famer on a good football team with a good coach that's going to be like, hey, we got Alvin Kamara. We got a great line. Let's run the ball here. And James was like, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Instead of when he was playing for the Bucs, it was like, well, I better make a play because, you know, if I don't, you know, how are we going to win? He doesn't have to do that no more. So it's the whole situation. It's sitting behind the Hall of Famer. It just all fits. And that usually creates the situation of success. And so that's why I think his interceptions will be under 10 for the season. I just think he's going to have a great year. And I think the Saints are going to contend for the crown in the NFC. I think they're a solid football team. But guys, another thing about this is it's not like the Saints were a bad football team last year, right? They were a pretty good football team. So the only thing that really changed was it's not Taysom Hill now, it's Jameis Winston. Because Drew Brees didn't play a bunch of the year last year either. So there hasn't been that much of a change there. So the Saints are a really undervalued play, especially for future bets. But that's why I think that Jameis Winston is going to have a great football season, and the Saints are going to have a good football season. I think that they'll beat the Bucs one time. They'll beat them in the Superdome, and I think they'll lose when they go to Tampa Bay. But yeah, I think absolutely that they're as good as anybody in the NFC. Now, do I think this Week 1 really indicates that? No, I don't care about this Week 1 game at all, outside of that the defense looked really, really good. So, but as far as the offense goes, they kept getting the ball on the 20 and stuff. So, I mean, there's a lot of players that can get in the end zone from there. So, that doesn't matter to me all that much. The Week 1 stuff, I was on the Saints pre-Week 1. I was on Jameis Winston taking a big step pre-Week 1. So, this is all that. Still same opinion. But that's where I get that from, and I think we're going to see it week in and week out, where he's just a really solid, good, upper top 12-ish type quarterback. I don't think he's going to be the MVP. I don't think he's going to throw 5 touchdowns again in a game this year. I think he'll have a whole bunch of 3-touchdown games. Just real solid performances, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, one pick, no pick, something like that. But guys, let's remember, and I know everyone gives Jameis Winston these big turnover issues, right? But outside of that one season, you know, he never really had a whole bunch of turnovers. They were in the teens, but that's normal for young quarterbacks. Go look at Tom Brady's stats, right? When Tom Brady first 5-6 years, he always had 12 to 14 interceptions, all right? So that one's 30, but let's remember he also threw 30 touchdowns that year. So 30 interceptions, 30 touchdowns. Not all of those interceptions were necessarily on him. Some of those were probably, tip balls and this and that. So he had a pretty good season that year. The interceptions just because it got blown up, because it was this record, because it got made out to be like this huge deal. But he actually had a pretty good year that year. And guys, I don't want you guys to think I'm a big Jameis Winston fan, because I really wasn't until he got to the Saints. And it had nothing to do with his production on the field. I just didn't think he had his head on straight. And so that's where I'm coming from on that handicap with the Saints and Winston. I think they're in a great spot. I think they got a steal with Jameis Winston, able to reel him in, and that's what they're doing. And they reeled him in, retrained him, and now you got this shiny new Jameis Winston that is what should have came out of Florida State, but he came out too early. He should have stayed 3 years. He just wasn't ready. He should have stayed 3 years, 4 years, came out, he would have been polished, way better off. He would have ended up at a better team probably than the Bucs. And that's where I'm at, but it is what it is. This is how his career's went, and he's got his shot. Yeah, the Lawrence, that's a huge injury for them. Hello? Sorry, I'm trying to get a coffee from McDonald's. I like McDonald's coffee if it's just the plain coffee, nothing in it. I don't eat at McDonald's at all anymore, though. That was my thing last year. I ate it there a lot, but I don't ever eat here anymore. But I do like their coffee if it's just plain coffee. Hello? Hello?
Okay.
I just want a large coffee.
Black?
Yeah, black.
It'll be 1 hour. Second one. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we're ready to rock. But so, yeah, guys, week 2, though. Week 2's tough. It's always tough every year. Big overreactions. It's hard to temper, your excitement. Like Arizona fans, they just got to be excited, right? Man, we just dominated this good offense and Derrick Henry, and they just got to be so excited. But really what happened in that game is one guy had the best game of his career, and he just caused 2 forced fumbles and stuff. And I just think you got to throw those kind of situations out the window, right? I like Arizona. I like Arizona's squad. I think they're talented. But you're not going to get 5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles out of one player every week. And I think if you take, even if you temper that and it's 1 forced fumble and 1 sack, which it could happen, right? But most players don't get that. That's every couple games they get stuff like that, where they get a sack and a fumble, even the good ones. So I just think that some of that overreactionary stuff comes from these individual performances we saw on the field, right? And so one of them is the Arizona, right? It's a huge individual performance where the rest of the team didn't have to do a lot, right? They held the Tennessee down pretty well. But I think that makes Tennessee a bad offense? Well, of course not. They got Derrick Henry. They got A.J. Brown. They got Julio Jones. We'll see where he's at. But they got, Ryan Tannehill's a pretty good quarterback. So I think what they did miss was Jonnu Smith. I think that you could really see there's no Jonnu Smith on the field. And I think that they definitely missed that. But do I think they're going to get it right? Yeah, I think they're going to go back to running Derrick Henry 25 times a game and then work off that. They went away from that in that game because that game got out of hand pretty quick. And so, bang, they're trying to catch up. So I think that they're going to go back to the running game, and Vrabel, he wants to run the football anyway. They're going to run the football and pound the rock with Derek, and I think they're going to get back to normal. Will that first loss hurt them? Yeah, I think it will. But I think they're still the best team in their division, so they're going to win their division, I think, relatively easily. But I do think that first loss could cost them a spot in the playoffs, positioning in the playoffs. So, but I mean, it's not like losing to Arizona is a bad loss. They're a good football team, so. But so those are the kind of things like overreactions on week 2, all right? So what ends up happening is week 2 is the overreaction week, right? And then week 3 is the dang it, why'd I overreact in week 2 week? So, but it happens. I mean, this is a very consistent thing. This is why across the board you'll hear handicappers talk about don't overreact to week 2. Stick with the way I get around it is I stick with my week 1 handicaps usually, unless there's huge injuries or just for some ridiculous difference. But for the most part, if I liked them in week 1, I like them in week 2 usually. So it just seems to be far more consistent for me, because I mean, I really want to overreact to a few things, and they're kind of what I thought, like especially with the Aaron Rodgers thing, right? I put out there.
Black coffee?
Thank you. I had put out there that I thought Aaron Rodgers. Thank you. I thought Aaron Rodgers didn't want to play football. You too.
Thanks.
And when he came out and he didn't want to play football against the Saints, I was like, man, my handicap was right. But he's still a competitor, right? He's still a Hall of Fame NFL quarterback, and he's one of the biggest egos in the game. All right, he goes about it different than others, but he's one of the biggest egos. So if you make fun of him, he's like Kobe Bryant. You say something bad to him, and then he wants to put 80 points on you, and that's kind of how he is. And so that's why I just think that he's gonna just come out and want to just dominate in the Detroit game. But I still don't think he necessarily wants to play football this year. I think it's just about an ego to shut up the haters type of thing. And that's why. But I didn't want to overreact when I saw what I thought I was going to see. Now, obviously, I thought he'd score more than 3 points. That didn't make a lot of sense, but that he just didn't play very well. He didn't look like he wanted to be out there, because I don't think he does. I don't think he wants to be in Green Bay at all. Like, I think if they would trade him this year, he'd be happy. So, and that's where that's coming from. I mean, he came out and said it on multiple occasions that he didn't want to play in Green Bay no more, and Green Bay just kept holding on and holding on and holding on. Well, now they restructured his deal so he can leave next year, but that still doesn't mean he wants to play this year. And I think that's kind of like what people thought was going to happen. Like, oh, they restructured him, so he's going to give Green Bay one less, title run. Well, I don't think he wants to do that at all. I think he just wants to get out of town. So, but I don't know. It's still just week 1. That's why I don't want to overreact to that. But it sure looked like that to me. So, anyways, I'm at my class. This is my last class, so this is good. I'll be done, and then I can go back to my normal work and normal hours. But anyway, so you guys have a great day. This is Jacob from Wedge Me This. I hope you guys won some money last night. If you're on Washington, bad handicap on my end. But if you were on the Daniel Jones prop, congratulations. I actually bet it twice. I had it at 22.5, and then it dropped. It got to 20, so I was like, I'm going to take it there too. Gave me 2 yards of value. I mean, it could matter, not really, but I was just like, okay, it's going down. I might as well keep betting it as it goes down. And then it went back up. But anyways, and everybody that is part of the membership has purchased picks. I sent them out today. If you have any issues, if you can't open them or you didn't get an email about it, let me know, and I'll make sure that gets remedied. All right, it's before Sunday. So anyways, guys, you guys have a great day. Nice play, ends low. Good job, man. Love that. I should have done that. I did do a stuff you're not supposed to do. I teased through the zero with Washington. After my show with VDC, I teased through the zero with Washington. And that's something I don't do. You're not supposed to do that. But VDC said something that made me think, oh, I better hedge this a little bit. But what he said didn't really come true, but the game went that way. So anyways, you guys have a great day. I'll see y'all later.